All right, week 5 college football breakdown here. Big 12 matchup in Lawrence, Kansas, and a really relevant game. Got Iowa State traveling to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. This line, Iowa State only a 3-point favorite in this spot and seeing a total in the upper 50s right now at 58 and a half. This is the thing about Kansas. Are they 4-0? Yes. Have they particularly played anybody worthwhile? Well, I mean, going on the road and beating West Virginia and Houston back-to-back weeks, both West Virginia and Houston do have massive holes. It's still impressive nonetheless, and it still does show how far Lance Leipold has brought back this program in just, his second year. I will say things do kind of have a way of balancing themselves out. And I am going to be looking for opportunities to bet against Kansas in the near future because I just don't think this is sustainable. In this matchup, though, what I'm going to do and what I feel best about doing, I'm going to isolate Iowa State's team total. I'm playing it over. Right now, with the total at 58 and a half, we're probably going to get it around 30 and a half or 31. If it's at 31 or if it's at 30 and a half, it's going to be a 2-unit best bet. It'll be my first 2-unit play of the season. So it tells you how strongly I feel about that. If it's 31 and a half or above, it'll just be a 1.5-unit play. But the reality of it is, if Kansas is truly back, it's because of their offense. Jalen Daniels has looked good to this point. They can run the football. They fared pretty well on the offensive line as well. I can tell you one thing, though. This is one of the worst defenses in college football. 122nd out of 131 teams by my defensive efficiency metrics. So, maybe they do keep this game close, but it's going to have to come through via a higher scoring game. I think Iowa State's going to be able to throw the ball all over the yard. I've actually been impressed with what Hunter Dekkers has put out so far this year. I mean, in some of his first starts, 72% completion, 7.3 yards per attempt. That's not great, but already 10 touchdowns. Think about who he's had to go up against this year. He played at Iowa. Iowa's the second best defense in college football, and he ended up leading the game-winning drive. They won that game. Playing Baylor this past week, they're maybe a top 15 defense in the country, and they're really good, especially on that front four. So to go from that to playing maybe a bottom 10 defense in the country whose main weakness is their secondary. I mean, this is a quarterback's dream type of matchup. They've got a good offensive line. I think they're gonna be able to win up front. I don't want to say easily, but this is a really veteran-laden group. Kansas' secondary is truly atrocious. I mean, that's not a reach. This is literally a bottom 10 defense in college football. Duke last week put up 324 yards through the air. JT Daniels threw all over this Kansas defense. In all of these games, Kansas's offense has really just been so efficient with that RPO game with Jalen Daniels. That's why they've been able to surprise people. But I just think it's indefensible to put with a bottom 10 defense against a competent offense like Iowa State to have a team total at 30 and a half, 31 in that low 30s range. I think that's just dead wrong. I'm also not willing to concede that Iowa State's not going to be able to run the football. I mean, we saw Jabril Brock last week, and I said I think it was last week's breakdown when they were playing Baylor, I said to say Breece Hall to Jabril Brock is the biggest downgrade, is a downgrade, would be the understatement of the century. Well, I mean, he faced one of the best front fours in college football last week, and he ran for over 5 yards per carry. It's not a huge staple of what Iowa State does, but that's pretty impressive. So if you can do that against Baylor, I'm not conceding that they won't be able to establish a pretty good run game, especially given what they have along their offensive line. I would lean towards Iowa State -3 as well. Maybe Kansas' offense is that good. I think that remains to be seen. I would still lean towards them kind of coming back down to earth a little bit throughout conference play. But I'm not going to worry about that side of it. I know this Kansas defense and their weaknesses. They're going to get beat up front. They're going to get thrown all over. And I think this total being and I think this team total for Iowa State being in the low 30s is indefensible. So I'm going to play that team total over. I'll say it one more time. If it's at 31 or 30 and a half or maybe even lower, that'll be a 2-unit play for me. First 2-unit play of the season. If it's anything above 31, sticking with a 1.5-unit play, that is a key number. So up to this point, if we get the right number, this will be my biggest wager of the season. Before we get out of here, guys, I know you've been staring at the shirt the whole time. If you're wondering how you can look as cool and sexy as me, let me tell you, proud90.com, unique but very comfortable polos as well. They got t-shirts, hoodies, quarter zips, recently added a ladies line. Proud 90's got all your golf apparel needs. Browse their selection. If you see anything you like at checkout, use code Fordham. It's going to get you 15% off your entire order. Check the description for more information.